On the Talkback Show, on the radio, or whatever audiovisual device you choose to use. As you wish. Welcome to the GBC podcast, where we talk about the Packers and our hometown of Green Bay. We are the official podcast of the Lot 1 Tailgate Party, which is at Lambeau Field every home game. This is episode 128, an episode in D minor, which is the saddest of all keys. Created December 16th, 2025. I'm John. I'm in Appleton, Wisconsin. Along with me, two guys who often say, I'll have what she's having. Jeff in Minnesota and Neil on the East Coast. Say, hello, gentlemen, and tell us what you're drinking.
Good evening, gentlemen. Tonight, I'm just having some Cointreau. Cowboy guy, what'll you have?
I'll have a beer.
Bartender, get Cowboy guy a beer.
And I am having a beer associated with Colorado. It's also a beer that's associated with people seeking it out and smuggling it into other parts of the country. Back in the day, whenever we went out west, my parents would bring back cases of Coors. Coors sucks, much like the Packers did in the second half of the game. But this particular beer contains 2% RDA, that's recommended daily allowance of riboflavin.
I made a mocha martini, and with that riboflavin, Neil, you're a good-looking guy. Jeff, you're a good-looking guy. We're all three good-looking guys. And you can find us on YouTube and Twitter at Green Bay Chat and Facebook at the GBC Podcast, Green Bay Chat. And just the audio is available on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify by searching for Green Bay Chat. Well, what are we going to talk about? As Neil mentioned, yes, it is not the Mile High Club. And as our friend Marty DeBerge would say, the review was 2 words, shit sandwich. We'll also give some playoff scenarios with 3 games remaining. And it's Bears week. It's a Saturday matchup against the Chicago Bears. The whole house is going to be full of romance, and I'm going to put on my Liberace records. Neil, let's start in Denver.
I rewatched the game today, and it's just remarkable how much worse the game is actually the second time, because we were so good in so much of the game, and yet we had this constant self-sabotage and this constant missed opportunities throughout the first half and also throughout the second half. We just seemed to want to get in our way every way that we possibly could.
Inconceivable.
Shit sandwich. Well, not all shit, right, Neil? I mean, the first half is really fun to watch up until, maybe 13 minutes remaining in the third quarter, right? The first 32 minutes of regulation, pretty spectacular.
Spectacular in some ways. If you look at the statistics, it was a situation where you'd say this was a great game for the Packers. We had 251 yards in the first half. We had 13 first downs. We held Denver to 28 total yards in the first quarter. We got a turnover on the Denver Broncos. Jordan Love was amazing in the first half. 17 of 22, 215 yards, 9.8 yards per attempt, a touchdown pass. And yet we were only up 2 despite all of those advantages at halftime. And it's because of all of those missed opportunities. We had 3 field goals in the first half. And that's the sort of thing that came back to bite us in the second half.
Yeah, there's 3 scoring drives there that you have to look at and you have to question. I think of the 3 field goals, though, one of them, because we didn't really put a lot into that drive, it's a long field goal. I'll concede that one's a 3-pointer, but the other two...
John, I am not going to concede that one. You're talking about the one after the one after the
I would at least concede the one.
That was the one that we got in midfield.
The other 2 had to be scoring drives.
They all had to be scoring. We got the ball at midfield after the fumble. So it's a perfect first drive. We knock them out. Micah Parsons gets the fumble. Cooper recovers the fumble. We get the ball at midfield, and we've got this opportunity. We moved the ball down. We got a 4th down conversion by Jordan Love, and then once we got down to being close, this is the first of the Rasheed Walker penalties. That sets us back. We eventually have a 13-yard conversion. We can't convert on a 3rd and 1. We lose yards, and we kick a 53-yard field goal. But we were down there in the position, and we sabotaged ourselves with penalties, with negative yard plays once we got into that position. And when you're at midfield, you should be thinking, get down closer at the very least, and making a long field goal. I mean, it was great that we made it, but we should be thinking better than that. And again, those are the opportunities that we really missed.
Right. And this is a game where, if you look at the first half, how many points? You have 16 points. You could have had as many as 28 points. And this is a game where points were a premium. You knew that these were 2 good offenses as well as 2 good defenses. You needed to score points to beat a very strong Denver team. And although you felt in control in that first half, you fell short as well.
There were things that made it a little bit unsettling. The untimely penalties started to rear their ugly head again. But perhaps worst of all were the asshats. Now, I'm just going to pile on right here because the Ass Hats, no matter what quarter, what half, they played a significantly negative role in this game. I'm going to give you some lowlights, but here's the overall picture. Denver averaged 29.7 yards on 6 kickoff returns. That's not okay. Furthermore, let's add unnecessary roughness on the punt from Enigbari. Brooks with another unnecessary roughness on the extra point. But wait, there's more. One of our favorite words, the muff. In the second quarter, the muffed kickoff. Wilson, he muffed it at the goal line, gets it out to the 14. We went 8 plays and 70 yards in a minute 54 and had to settle again for a field goal because of the shitty positioning that the muff put us in.
And just going on with that, off the Enigbari unnecessary roughness, that was our second drive. We started at our 3-yard line because of that, and we went 89 yards and only got a field goal. We have anything that resembles better field position, and that's likely a touchdown. Now, we did other things on that drive, including Walker being an ineligible player downfield to add further degrees of difficulty, but we made some beautiful plays on that 89-yard drive that at the end meant very little because we only got 3 points out of them. Yes, we got 3 points, but all of those plays should have added up to a lot more.
And yeah, it's an 89-yard drive, and you can say it fails or it falters, and then you're satisfied with a field goal. To me, I saw the silver lining there. I really felt that this offense was in control in the first half. And it's like, okay, we got a field goal there, but the next drive around or the next drive around after that, we're going to get a touchdown. We're going to get into the end zone. This is going to be a game where the offense is going to get moving. And it really gets moving in some interesting ways. Josh Jacobs with just his second career touchdown reception.
John, what a catch that was. He made it memorable. It was a thing of beauty. It was a perfectly thrown ball, and he did everything he possibly could have to catch it. I didn't think he caught it at first. And then replay clearly showed he had both feet down. It was an amazing catch.
Not just keeping the feet in, Jeff, but just pure strength, hand strength, arm strength. And you're seeing the defender with his arm in there, how that ball didn't get knocked away is a thing of beauty. Just credit to Josh Jacobs on every single aspect of that catch and that play.
But can we talk about the self-sabotage on that drive? Because that touchdown to Jacobs was on a 3rd and 14 after we had a John Fitzpatrick illegal shift, after we had Walker have a holding penalty that was declined, actually, thankfully, that gave us the 3rd down and 14 rather than something that was even further. There were just enough things in there that we had to overcome ourselves in order to get that touchdown. And thankfully, the players were up. And I do want to note that Love had a great game in the first half, not just based on the numbers, but all of those big plays that were on 3rd down that were just absolute things of beauty as far as just seeing the field. He had time in the first half and he made the plays. And all of those big conversions, the receivers are getting involved. John's favorite, how many different receivers caught the ball in the first half? It was poetry as far as the movement of our offense was concerned, other than we decided to shoot ourselves in the foot.
On top of that, Neil, that play to Jacobs, though, there was a harbinger of other things to come. Tom was hurt on the play. I didn't realize it at the time, and it would have definitely taken the tarnish off of the touchdown, but that was an injury bugaboo that was going to rear its ugly head.
Oh, and by the way, our top offensive lineman going out against the best pass rush in the NFL by a fair margin, that certainly was the story of the second half.
So the game is now back and forth. We score the touchdown, then Denver comes back and scores a touchdown. So we get the ball back with just under 2 minutes to go. So it's time for our 2-minute offense, and it starts out great. 19-yard pass to Watson, a beautiful 16-yard pass to Musgrave, add a roughing the passer on that. And the Packers have just stormed down the field, so there's 1:23 left in the half. We're on the Denver 36. We're looking for another touchdown. Neil, what happened?
Well, first of all, we started on our 14, so bad start from that. We went 50 yards in 31 seconds. And then we had a short pass to Musgrave. That managed to only take only take 24 seconds. And then we had a short run to Wilson that took another 37 seconds. We went 50 yards in 31 seconds, and then we went 2 plays in a minute 1. There was a complete lack of urgency that was present there once we got into field goal range. It's as if Matt LaFleur saw that, okay, we're close enough for a field goal. We can sort of calm things down. It's almost as if he was afraid of giving Denver the ball back before the half rather than putting his foot on the gas pedal and doing what got us those 50 yards in those 31 seconds. And on 3rd and 6, we did have a completion of Dobbs, but then we had that very dicey play where we threw to Brooks and he thankfully got out of bounds so we could get the field goal. But I mean, we were down to 1 timeout when that drive started. And that was the other thing, is the clock management was terrible during this game. We just seemed to be out of timeouts and using timeouts wastefully throughout. And that reared its ugly head because we essentially didn't have time to go for the end zone on that drive, despite being there with a minute 23 on the edge of the red zone. And that's just appalling. And you've got to take advantage of those opportunities. And we just did the opposite of that.
Neil, but we did make the field goal at least. We were ahead at halftime. Yes, we could have been ahead a lot more, but it's a good, comfortable feeling being in the lead at halftime.
And not only that, you noted at the beginning of that drive, well, we've got 2 drives in a row, and this should be an opportunity to blow the game open. And it certainly looked great in the second half when we go down and drive for a touchdown on another huge Josh Jacobs play to now take a 9-point lead early in the third quarter.
3 plays, 71 yards, 1 minute and 1 second. A 6-yard pass, that 25-yard pass interference penalty in Golden. Fantastic. That's just what the doctor ordered.
Sometimes you need luck. Sometimes you need luck on that.
Absolutely. But you know what? Golden is creating that look because he's so damn fast. He's going to draw those penalties, exactly what we need. And then Jacobs rips off that 40-yarder. Like you said, we're up 9. It's 23-14. We're thinking, sweet. But wait, it gets even better. So then Denver comes out, and it's a 3 and out. 3 plays, 1 yard. We're looking great, aren't we?
This is obviously going to be a cruise victory. Obviously.
Shit sandwich.
It looked like a good start of that drive. I mean, the ball's in the air. We've got Watson one-on-one. There's at least a chance, right?
There's always a chance. But in this case, it becomes the everything that can go wrong. I mean, the wheels literally start coming off at this point.
The interception was a great interception.
Great play. Okay? Great play by
Surtain. Yeah, and it was like a punt. I mean, it was a really
on first down. Usually you don't punt on first down, to be fair.
Okay, fine. But great individual play. It was unfortunate, but there was an injury on the play. Watson went down. Now, I thought it was a broken collarbone. I was like, well, shit. It was an injury nonetheless, which is bad enough. Now, apparently, even though he was hospitalized, there's a chance he's going to play against the Bears. But the point is he was done for this game. And so we lose our fastest guy, one of our best receivers. And then the defense, I don't know, maybe a little demoralized or whatever. Denver says, okay, we're going to put our foot on the gas. And they storm back for a 71-yard drive to score a touchdown and pull it within 2.
What's your opinion of going for it on that long pass and essentially going for the dagger early in the third quarter?
Well, obviously, looking back on it, you don't like it.
Sure, you would not want us to go like super conservative in running at that point either. So
it's worked before. I mean, Watson has outran everybody before. I'm okay with it. No, him getting hurt, I'm not okay with, obviously, but that's fine.
So I agree with you. I think that this was a reasonable opportunity, although starting at our own 19, again, potentially an issue because we're going to be giving them good field position if it is interception. But spontaneity has its time and place.
But unfortunately, the defense basically didn't hold up there into the bargain then. So it's 1 turnover apiece now, and Denver storms back and scores another touchdown.
Right, but we're still ahead. So as long as our offense is able to find its way, I mean, at this point, we had 5 straight scoring drives and then an interception. There's nothing really suggesting that the Denver defense can stop us.
And maybe here's where the injury to Zach Tom rears its ugly head a little bit more, because suddenly we're not able to run the ball. Rasheed Walker gets another penalty on this drive, a false start. Love has an amazing 24-yard scramble, incompletion, 0-yard run, sack.
Yeah, the first sack of the game. And that was really pointing to the rest of the game and the inability to get the ball moving on the ground either. Jacobs with -3 yards rushing on 2 rushes on that drive. And the Love scramble on 3rd and 13 was the only real saving point of that drive.
So then the asshats make an ass of themselves again. So the Packers have to punt it away. There's a holding on the punt on McDuffie. So instead of Denver getting it on their 20 because it was a touchback, they get it on their 30. Awesome. So net 27-yard field position change. So then what does Denver do? Maybe they've sensed blood in the water. I don't know. Another 70-yard touchdown drive.
I wish it were only a 70-yard touchdown drive because that was where the missed opportunities on defense especially screamed out. There were 2 opportunities for Xavier McKinney to have an interception on that drive. We had multiple other opportunities for interceptions, and Xavier McKinney not getting the interception then leads to the most important play of the game a couple plays later.
And what we end up learning here, life is pain. Anyone who says differently is selling something. And this was a painful moment in many ways.
It just seemed to take the entire life out of the team, the fans, everybody. It's just like, oh shit, we have this amazing player, and everyone who's ever watched sports saw the way Micah Parsons fell and knew that that had to be an ACL or something extremely similar, and just absolutely deflating.
Even how Bo Nix reacted. He ran over to him. I mean, he had just thrown a pass downfield, and he ran over and he kneeled down next to him. Great sportsmanship from Bo Nix, but that just underscored the severity and the gravity of what had just taken place.
But the big question is, was there holding on that play? I mean,
I think that's one of the few that there wasn't, John.
But you could argue that the lack of holding penalties called are what lead to things like this, because you have offensive linemen that are getting away with shit. And it should be fair play, where I think if Parsons is able to get through without a hold, without things like that, and he is unhindered, he's got that extra half step or even that step because he wasn't held at some point or had hands to the face or anything like that. And yeah, I believe there was a little bit of holding on this play that held him up, slows him down. He has to make a move with Nix making a move, and that's where you see him. You see him make that left, right, and it's that changing of direction, moving laterally. That's why it's the lateral ligament. It keeps you from moving left, right, or it helps you to move left, right. And you could just see it snap and buckle on that play on every replay. And it's unfortunate to say it, but you knew what it was as soon as you saw it.
And unfortunately, after the Parsons injury, Denver scored just 2 plays later. And then at the end of the third quarter, they now have a lead over the Packers.
The Packers offense responded. They didn't respond with a touchdown, unfortunately. There was a long pass to Golden. Packers have a 1st and 10 at the Denver 18. Thinking, okay, let's take the lead back. Let's score a touchdown, keep our foot on the gas. We have a -1 yard run, an incomplete pass.
And that's a Fitzpatrick drop on that one that could have gotten us down to 5 or 6 yards further at least. There were a couple of drops that happened in the second half that didn't help the situation.
No, and so we settled for a 37-yard field goal. And unfortunately, this would be the last of our scoring. So we're 1-4 in the red zone for the game. Denver's 4-4 in the red zone. Yet another kind of lost opportunity here.
And then it got worse because Denver scored a touchdown with some 4th down conversions and throwing an Egbari offsides to give them 1st and goal at the 3-yard line. And I don't really want to go through all of the different elements of that, but it was just our defense was breaking down, and it was clearly partly a response of Parsons not being there physically, but it was also partly a mental response. You could see that the players were in shock by Parsons being injured, and there was not that level of emotion on either the offense or defensive side at that point.
But ultimately, this is an 8-point game at the end, right? 34-26. You look at this and you say, hey, on the positive side, Jeff, our kicker was 4 for 4. We got 12 points off of that. But any 2 of those 4 drives, you swap them to touchdowns for field goals, there's 8 points. And you pick one more. Like I said, I would concede the one, but the other 3 all could have been touchdown drives. You have a 4-point lead in that game. We can talk about injuries. We can talk about things that happened in the game, the attitude changing. But Neil, you mentioned it earlier. It comes down to that shift in the mentality of the game plan. You get success for a couple of plays, and you're like, okay, let's just cool out and ride it from here. And you've got to keep going. And I think that if this team kept going, there is a chance that you have a tie game or you have still a driver's seat position, forcing Denver to have to continue to play, continue to throw, and make more predictable plays to get into the game.
And John, the converse of that is Denver scored 5 touchdowns in the game, 4 through the air and 1 on the ground. Our defense converts 1 or 2 of those into field goals, or even we get a turnover on one of those drives, and our scoring ends up being close to good enough. And I think that there's no doubt that the final drives that the Packers had in the fourth quarter, we were behind by a full touchdown. And there was an element of desperation. There was a component that the Denver Broncos could pin their ears back and go after Jordan Love. They did it through a variety of blitzes and 4-man packages, but they were able to focus on the passing game, and our offense was extremely ineffective in that fourth quarter.
And even before the Parsons injury, Bo Nix is having a career day as well. This is, second time in his young career, 4 touchdown passes in a game.
And most of that damage was in the second and third quarters. Bo Nix in the second and third quarters combined, so half a game, 16 of 22, 237 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Oh, and then the other thing that was a big one, no sacks for the Packers, and that was true all game. And it was the second and the third quarter where they really pulled away with it when we were not able to respond touchdown for touchdown.
The Packers and Denver turning the ball over on downs to kind of end the game was pretty weird. But the one statistic that stood out to me, the Packers' penultimate drive, 7 plays, 1 net yard, 2 minutes and 31 seconds. Started at the Green Bay 45, but there were 2 sacks, Neil, as you alluded to. Denver was looking for Love to pass. And the Packers had no answers on their offensive line. The receivers weren't getting separation. But 7 plays, 1 yard with a 1-score game. Getting the ball on our own 45-yard line after Denver turns it over on downs. Just some golden opportunities that were missed.
Yeah, but our offense overall really stunk in the second half, and Jordan Love's numbers are the ones that scream out. Jordan Love was 7 of 18 for 61 yards, 3.4 yards per attempt, 2 interceptions, 3 sacks for 29 yards. So net 32 yards passing in the entire second half, or 1.5 yards per drop back for Jordan Love in the second half. Completely ineffective. And our running game wasn't that much better other than those long runs, excluding the long runs from Love and from Jacobs. 8 rushes for 16 yards, 2.0 yards per attempt. We couldn't get anything going other than a couple of big chunk plays in that second half.
And if all that wasn't bad enough, Jeff, there were quite a few penalties in this game too.
Yeah, John, the Packers had 10 accepted penalties for 72 yards, quite a few of those on Rasheed Walker, 3 accepted, and a whole bunch of asshat penalties. It was the Denver, though, defense that really, really put a lot of pressure on Jordan Love and our offensive line. They had 15 quarterback hits, 5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 31 pressures on 40 dropbacks on Jordan Love, and 19 hurries. Neil, what was our defensive line able to do?
Well, we had 18 pressures, but we know John's opinion on pressures because those 18 pressures led to 0 sacks and only 1 quarterback hit. So 15-1, the ratio of quarterback hits.
The final score again from Denver, 34-26. Green Bay takes the loss, drops their record down to 9-4-1. Swapping places again with the Bears between the 2 seed and the 7 seed. The good news is it keeps Green Bay in the playoff seeding. What are things like in Minnesota now that the Vikings have been eliminated from playoff contention?
Well, they didn't suck as bad the last couple weeks. So I guess, looking up, J.J. McCarthy played well against the Cowboys, and it was nice to see the Cowboys lose. Just put them out of their misery.
The playoff scenario as it is of the 3 remaining games, Green Bay just needs to win 1 and have Detroit lose 1 for Detroit to get eliminated from playoff contention. The Lions have the Steelers coming up, and then they play the Vikings and the Bears to wrap up the season. We'll talk about the Packers and the Bears in a moment. But here's the question with 3 games remaining. Remember back in August, we did a season preview that we had to remake because of the Micah Parsons trade. Before the Micah Parsons trade, I believe you had this team as a Super Bowl contender, both of you.
I did indeed.
Is this team still a Super Bowl contender?
We are a Super Bowl contender, and I think the reason is because this team is going to respond. There are so many things that went wrong in this game against Denver, and the offense is going to have to take a step up. I'm wearing my Van Ness jersey. We're going to have other players that are going to need to step up, but we've also got a lot of extremely talented players. I think it's also aided by the fact that there is not a team that is so obviously dominant. I know that it looks like the Rams and the Seahawks are really, really good, but on the other hand, they've shown chinks in their armor too. And quite frankly, I'm not afraid of going into Los Angeles with Jordan Love and our offense just lighting up their defense.
It creates some consternation because suddenly we have a dominant defender going down, kind of everybody rallied around him. Like Neil said, there are other players that need to step up. It's critical that anybody else steps up. Isn't that the mantra of the NFL, next man up? Well, this could not be any more clear. Our injury report is still super ugly. If we can get some of these players back and just performing, just rallying around, if nothing else, just win one for Micah, for God's sake. Let's just get something going like that.
But I think more than that, right? So I would say with Micah Parsons, I viewed us as one of the top 3 teams in the NFL. And I don't see us as one of the top 3 teams in the NFL, but guess what? It's not the top 2, 3, 4 teams that are the ones that go to the championship games in the Super Bowl. It's not a game where it's the 1 versus the 2 and the 1 versus the 1 in the Super Bowl. There is an element of randomness that is inherent to the game of football. And if you've got the components, most importantly, a great quarterback, and you've got other components that are going to be able to match against other teams, will be able to take advantage. And, you look at those missed interceptions that we had against Denver. We get one of those, and this game turns very differently. And we've got the pieces and the players, and especially people like Evan Williams. Edgerrin Cooper had a great game, independent of everything else that happened there. He was flying all over the place again. Quay Walker has taken a step up. And yes, we've got some weaknesses, but every team has weaknesses, and we're just going to have to cover ours. But guess what? So does every other team.
Agreed. Yeah, nobody's going to feel sorry for us because of injuries, just like we don't feel sorry for any other team that has injuries. It's how it's overcome. It's the coaching staff. How are they getting these players ready? How are the players responding? Are they feeling sorry for themselves, or are they hungry? Are they going to rally? And are they going to show the NFL that they can still win without perhaps their best player?
And in the NFC, you've got right now 3 teams with 4 losses, 2 teams with 3 losses. You have a situation where a 10-7 team is probably going to miss the playoffs, possibly an 11-6 team missing the playoffs. So it is tight. Every game is essential at this point, Neil. Like you said, it's not always the 1 and 2 teams that get it, but it's the teams that are hot late in the season. It's also the teams that are healthy. And yes, we lose arguably our best player on defense and a guy that really sparked this team. But if we keep getting dinged and nickel and dime, so to speak, in our injuries, like we did in the Denver game, where you see Watson leave the game, Tom leave the game, Evan Williams left the game, these things keep happening. It's not going to be good news in the postseason. But let's take care of the next 3 games first. Coming up, we have in the Packers schedule will be the Bears, the Ravens, and the Vikings to wrap things up. You can only take those games one at a time. That means it's Bears week. This game is moved to Saturday night, prime time in Chicago. It looks to be a rainy night in Chicago based on the weather forecast. That's all you're getting out of this one, Mark. It's a rainy night in Chicago. Other than that, we just saw this team. It was just Bears week. How can it be Bears week again? We beat Chicago 28-21. Going into this game, though, Chicago definitely on a high. They just trounced the Cleveland Browns 31-3. Green Bay coming off the loss.
The 3-11 Cleveland Browns, let's be fair.
Well, and right. Of those 3 wins, though, they played their arguably their best game of the season in week 3, right? And you have a Packers team coming off a loss with injuries. The transitive theory of math, though, Neil, always applies to sports, right? Chicago beat Cleveland. Cleveland beat Green Bay. That means Chicago's winning Saturday night, right?
Except that Green Bay already beat Chicago. And here's your preview. Go rewatch the game from 2 weeks ago. If you want to hear further statistical preview, go listen to our Chicago pregame from 2 weeks ago. You want further analysis of the game, go to our episode from last week. We know what this team is, and we've got to be able to do the things against Caleb Williams that we didn't do in the second half of that game. And we certainly had a very comfortable period in that game, and we've got to play at our best. I think the team is going to be focused, and they know what Caleb Williams can do. There's an advantage of familiarity. I think this advantage is going to favor a more experienced team. And I think that we are the overall more experienced team as opposed to Caleb Williams. I think Jeff Hafley is going to try to throw some new wrinkles at Caleb Williams after what he did to us in certain elements of his game. And it's our defense's job to make Caleb Williams uncomfortable, to contain him, and to force him to make mistakes, because we saw how many bad passes he actually threw in that game. And they ended up being incompletions rather than things that really destroyed the Bears. But he's making bad passes. He is not a particularly accurate thrower every time. He has some beautiful passes, sure, but that's not every time. And we've got to take advantage when he doesn't have those perfect passes.
And with that, Neil, let's hope we can watch the game together Saturday night as well, right?
Indeed, I will be driving through Chicago on Friday, and no, I will not be going to the game in Chicago. But yes, we have the opportunity to hang out together for some time, and Jeff will be joining us too.
It's something I always look forward to. So as we look at Bears week and a very important game Saturday night, Jeff, your final thoughts?
Packers have a ton of injuries. Will they rally or roll over? Will Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness, Xavier McKinney step up on defense? Will the offensive line be able to protect Jordan Love? I see this as a must-win game for the Packers to prove that they should be the NFC North champions. Go Pack, go.
I expect that this is going to be a springboard, and I think that the team is going to play with more of an edge. I'm looking forward to playing the Denver Broncos in the Super Bowl. And you know what's going to happen when they do the coin toss at the Super Bowl? You're going to have Jordan Love come up and say, "Hello, my name is Jordan Love. You killed my edge rusher. Prepare to die," as we go ahead and avenge Super Bowl 32 and win against the Denver Broncos.
And my final thought takes us back to our formative years in 1985, a movie that meant a lot to the three of us called The Sure Thing. Written by two guys, Stephen Bloom and Jonathan Roberts. Jonathan Roberts would later go on to co-write a movie called The Lion King. Perhaps you've heard of it. Stephen Bloom wrote The Sure Thing about a college escapade that he had where he went on a road trip, basically to meet up with a girl and to see how it went. And there's a great line in this movie that we quote at the end of every episode, said by the great character actor Larry Hankin. If you see him, you would recognize him and you know who he is. We dropped in quite a few lines from Rob Reiner movies in the episode here today. While Rob Reiner did not write the movies, he certainly was important in getting these movies on screen. Just a terrific run of movies, again, during our formative years with This Is Spinal Tap, The Sure Thing, Stand By Me, even When Harry Met Sally, some great movies that were in our lives. And from that movie, Stand By Me, there's a couple of lines that we hear from the narrator. One line is that we have friends who pass through our lives like busboys in a restaurant. In the other, the narrator says, "I never had friends later on, like the ones I had when I was 12. Does anyone? So I'm thankful that I've had both of you as friends, since we were 12. And we get to talk about our favorite city and our favorite football team. And we get to just do things together that mean things to us.
John, we speak each other's unspoken language fluently.
What Neil said.
So with that, if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit subscribe, leave a comment. Find the GBC podcast at Green Bay Chat. That's all one word, Green Bay Chat. We are on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Blue Sky, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, and on Facebook at the GBC Podcast, Green Bay Chat. And please follow us on any and all of those social media platforms, and may you fully appreciate the magnitude of your impending good fortune. Thanks for joining us.
Good night.
Good night.